Okay, well, I'm sorry to interrupt all the lively conversations. I wanted to say welcome. I was going to say welcome to the Foreign Correspondence Club of Japan. I guess, Kaori, welcome to the Foreign Correspondence Club of Japan. So, my name is Martin Fackler. I'm the chairman of the Swadesh DeRoy Scholarship Committee. And this is our annual awards banquet, so thank you all for coming. So how the evening's going to work out, so we have a guest speaker who's joining us, I believe, from London, and so we'll go to her in a moment, and then I'll have my colleagues come up, Hans and David, and announce the winners of this year's, actually last year's, scholarships. But before we do, let me just quickly introduce the scholarship. So Swadesh DeRoy was a journalist. The scholarship is named after Swadesh DeRoy, obviously. And he was a journalist born in British India before the war. When I joined the club in 1997, when I was a young, cub reporter at the Associated Press, Swadesh was still here. He was already a very sort of eminent kind of senior journalist at that point. He'd been the president of the club in I think it was 1980. And as he got older, he had donated money for the club to support the next generation of journalists, to support young journalists. And when he passed away in 2001, we named the scholarship after him. And I've headed this committee now for, I think, 3 years, and it's really a great opportunity because it is the way that the club supports students and supports the next generation of journalists. So you really get an opportunity to see the work of young people and people who want to get into this awesome profession. The students of you, there's no better job in the world. You are looking at the best job on the planet. No, but seriously, it's a great job, and we hope that the scholarship is an opportunity maybe to excite you a bit about it. And we also hope that our speaker tonight will also kindle your interest as well. The scholarship, we give out 3 awards every year, or up to 3. They're 300,000 yen each, one in pen, for obviously written work, one in photos, and one in video. And this year, we did not have a video submission, so we just have a pen and a photo winner. But still, we hope that you can use the money to further your studies or do freelance work or whatever. But we really do want people to get into journalism and to keep this going to the next generation. So what'll happen next is I'm going to hand the floor to the speaker. Her name is Megumi Inman, joining us from London. Can we put her on the screen, please? Meg, can you hear us? Wait a second here.
Hello.
Hello,
Good
can you hear us,
evening.
Meg? Are you there?
I'm here. Can you hear
Great.
me?
Yes, we can. So I'm not going to do a long introduction because we've asked Meg to talk about 2 things. One is her work exposing the sexual abuse scandals at Johnny and Associates that rocked Japan's entertainment world. Meg is a filmmaker, and her work appeared on the BBC and really had a huge impact. And she's also worked at the Financial Times and has done great work. And also, we really wanted her to speak tonight because we're hoping that not only would she talk about how she broke this story at Johnny and Associates, but also talk about how she got into journalism and why she does it, right? And hopefully impart some of that passion to the next generation. So without further ado, I'm going to hand the conch over to Meg. Meg, can you hear us? Are you able to take over?
Yeah, for sure. Thanks very
Okay.
much. Thank you, Martin. Thank you for that kind introduction, and thank you again for inviting me to speak here tonight. When our Johnny Kitagawa documentary, The Predator, The Secret Scandal of J-Pop, first came out last year, the FCCJ was one of the first and few media organizations to recognize the enormity of our findings. And not only that, but also give a platform to more survivors to speak out. At the time, no other news outlets apart from Shukan Bunshun were really giving the story the attention it so desperately needed. So being here with you all, I feel like I'm with kindred spirits, and it gives me huge pleasure to know that there are a cohort of young aspiring journalists that are raring to go. So as Martin said, I was asked to speak about my career and the Johnny Kitagawa story and some of the projects I've worked on. But I thought rather than sort of just listing my CV chronologically, I thought I'd share 7 lessons with you that I'd learned in documentary filmmaking. Just to be clear, I have learned more than 7 lessons, but I needed to choose a number, and 7 being a lucky number and how I wish all the best of luck for you in your careers, I settled on that. So here we go. Before I dive in, though, maybe a bit of context about my background would be helpful. So my mother's Japanese and my father's British. And I grew up in both countries, of which from ages 9 to 14, I lived in Tokyo. And I went to normal local primary school and later a junior high school, a girls' school in Tokyo. So I feel like I did have the quintessential Japanese childhood and education. It was at university in Edinburgh where I was introduced to documentaries and learned the incredible power of reporting through storytelling and film. And whilst I was studying for my finals, I managed to get a job as a runner on a production. Now, I think a runner might be a British term, but it's basically the first entry-level job that you get on a TV set, where your role is to make the tea, get the lunches, bring kit to the crew. Basically, you're a spare body on set and you just got to be useful. And yeah, so ever since then, documentaries and telling stories through film has been my thing, and I absolutely love it. I realize I'm surrounded by quite a lot of print journalists here. And whilst our output might be different, I do believe the crux of what we do is the same. So hopefully some of my next points will resonate with you too. So back to those 7 lessons. So my first lesson is remember your first impressions. When you're working on a story for a long time, you can start to become desensitized and normalize what you originally found remarkable about a story. This is something I reminded myself of even on my most recent project, Atomic People, which is a film about the lives of the survivors of the atomic bombs in Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Last spring, over Zoom for about 2 months, every morning I woke up and talked to atomic bomb survivors and listened to their horrific but also incredible experiences. One of the first stories I heard was of Michiko's. She was around 10 years old when the bomb dropped, and she lived in a busy, lively neighborhood, which is now the Hiroshima Peace Park. Today, that area is flattened and is full of trees. But before the bomb dropped, there was a bustling high street, many schools, and lots of houses. But a few weeks before the bomb dropped, Michiko's family evacuated to the countryside and were spared their lives. A year later, when Michiko returned to her old neighborhood, she said the cries of the cicadas sounded like the cries of her friends and neighbors screaming, "Help me, help me." And for years, she struggled to go back there and carried what is commonly known as survivor's guilt, guilt for surviving an atomic bomb. Each one of these stories was so terrifying, chilling, and heartbreaking. But the more I listened, the more I became used to hearing these atrocities and the numbers of deaths and the devastation. But not wanting to be numb by all of this, I started to also get bogged down in the discrepancies of these stories. How many kilometers from the hypercenter were they? How many people and their family died? What were their exact radiation sickness symptoms, and how many and when did they realize that they were a hibakusha? All of these are important questions, but I'd start to get lost in the details of it, that sometimes it was important to spend a couple of days away from the testimonies or speak to someone else about it to not lose sight of the overall picture of devastation. And what often helped was taking myself back to my first impressions of when I heard Michiko's story. Similarly, with the Johnny Kitagawa story, I met many survivors and listened to their testimonies, which were harrowing and shocking each time. But as we dug further, our investigation expanded, and the cover-up of the abuse became a large part of the story too. What is it about the media infrastructure that allowed for this crime to go unreported? What is it about Japanese corporate culture that allowed this to happen in plain sight? Why is it that Japanese police won't take press requests from foreign media? And what is idol culture, and why does it have this ability to cast a spell on its fans? Another one was, why do these stories keep on coming up all over the world? Michael Jackson, Jimmy Savile, R. Kelly. And at times it felt like we'd moved so far away from where we had originally started that it was important to remember, at the heart of all of this, we're talking about children who were abused and failed to be protected by the adults around them. And with that in mind, it helped keep our investigation focused. Second is never assume anything, be it train times, weather, someone's availability, or God forbid, their opinions and experiences. I soon found this out when I was filming with a handsome male model in central London at the beginning of my career. It was a snowy day in December, and the model was being body painted as a deer. Now that's a whole different story. But the director turned to me and suggested we film the deer, the model, outside in the snow. I shrugged and said that this fancy fashion model would probably not want to go outside naked, but I'd ask anyway. It turned out that the model was from Russia and wasn't the least bit fazed by our British winter, so never assume. We all went outside very happily, but what I hadn't expected was a bunch of kids to come racing out of the school opposite the street from us and start throwing snowballs in our deer's direction. I've never seen a man in pretend deer hoofs run so quickly. On a more serious note, though, the doorstep we did at the offices of Johnny and Associates, although may have looked haphazard in our film, took careful planning. The thing to bear in mind is that at the time, saying anything remotely negative about Johnny and Associates was taboo. Most people I spoke with on repeated occasions told me to be careful, and if possible, drop the story altogether. It was too dangerous. And here we were planning to storm the fortress of Johnny's, and we only had one shot. So we decided where we keep the crew van and mapped our escape route. As the insides of the offices had never been seen before, we had no idea what space we'd be entering, so we sent our producer to recce the foyer. And we made various plans. What if Julie came down? What if we were invited upstairs? What if part of the crew were allowed but not all? What if they called the police? And we went through all of these scenarios with each of our crew and the BBC policy team too. As it turned out, we ended up filming the most polite and civilized doorstep in BBC history. We were asked to wait in the foyer by the security guard, and someone came to meet us and with almost no emotion at all told us to leave. But having all those scenarios played out in our minds, we all knew as a crew how to move as one and film what we knew would be the last scene of our film. Now, my third lesson comes off the back of the second and is a practical one. It's always carry a boiled egg. I had a brilliant colleague, but there was one thing I found very odd about her. She always carried round with her 2 boiled eggs. And so one day I just had to ask, what is it with these eggs? And apparently, she was told by a legendary journalist that you should always carry a boiled egg with you, as you never know where you'll be for lunch. You might be stuck in traffic, you might be reporting from the middle of nowhere, far away from a cafe, or if you're at the Ritz, you can order a salad and add your own egg topping. So there you go. I'm now passing that wisdom to you. Always carry a boiled egg. Now, we are in privileged positions to listen to people's story and report that to the wider world. And that privilege comes with a heavy responsibility. People trust us with their stories to tell it fairly, with heart and intelligence. Our contributors are not paid to speak to us, and they have every right to say no and deny us going into their homes and digging into their lives. So how do we convince them to trust us? One way, and my fourth lesson, is to let people into your storytelling. This might not work with every story or person, but where you can, by letting them into your vision, your questions, and allowing them to explore with you as opposed to by you, you'll start to build a far more collaborative relationship. With every story, access is key, and the best access comes when trust is built, so let them in. This couldn't have been more true when I was working on a documentary for the BBC about Shiori Ito, the young journalist that went public with her allegation of rape by a prominent reporter. At the time, there were various opinions of her. Many commended Shiori's bravery in coming forward, but there were also many who were critical. And finding and speaking to the critics was proving surprisingly difficult to the team, so I said I'd try and help. As a woman myself, I wasn't expecting it to be a pleasant experience and was slightly dreading the prospect. So instead, I tried to frame it differently and think of it as an important exercise in getting to know another culture, a tribe, or language. What would I do then? Well, I would enter with no preconceptions, admit I knew nothing, and I was there to learn. And with that attitude, it was much easier to speak to what they called themselves anti-feminist groups and extreme traditionalist factions of Japanese society. Being open about myself, fair in my questioning, and letting my contributors into my research, they led me to great resources and new contacts, including Mio Sugita, an LDP politician who at the time was fresh on the political scene. The harder the research, the more open you can be about it, I found could lead to surprising results. Now, my next point, and it might slightly contradict what I said earlier, is to remember to take yourself out of the story when researching or analyzing it. You see, you may be sitting on an incredible story, an unearthed gem, but perhaps you are so close to it, or in a way a part of the story itself, you cannot see it. 7 years ago, I was introduced to a director who was making a documentary about a Japanese comedian called Nasubi. And to my surprise, I knew exactly who she was talking about because I used to watch him religiously on TV, like every other teenager. He was hugely famous in Japan in the 90s, but I couldn't for the life of me understand why she thought his story was worth of a documentary film. So I said, Nasubi, what's so amazing about him? Isn't he the guy that was on that crazy TV show in the 90s? Wasn't he like trapped naked inside a tiny apartment and had to win his food, clothes, toilet paper, everything through sweepstake lotteries? And wait, is it true he had no idea that he was on TV? Saying it out loud like that, I very quickly realized what an insane, unbelievable, and in many ways horrifying story this was. But because I'd been an audience of the TV show, it was only when that director shone a new light on it could I see the story from a different angle. I was immediately sold and became the producer of that film. And it took several years to make. But last year, it had its world premiere at the Toronto International Film Festival and was hailed the most WTF film of the year. The name of the film is The Contestant. And when it does make its way to Japan, I really do hope you get to watch it. Okay, so we're nearly there. 6th lesson. Don't put square pegs in round holes. In our work, we meet and interview many people. Rightly or wrongly, in documentary, we call them contributors or characters. And if you look on Netflix or elsewhere, you'll see that many documentaries these days are character-driven. This means the story is led by a person rather than an issue or a place. And so picking the right character, right person, who will drive your film and tell your story is absolutely critical. For a few years in my late 20s to early 30s, I was making a film about a disappearing village in Akita and a sake brewery that was trying to revive it by growing organic rice for its sake. I was hooked because I had heard that the farmers of the village were vehemently against organic farming, even though this was their golden ticket out of extinction. They thought it was too risky and prone to disease, fanciful hipster dream talk. So I went to the village in seek of a character, someone who would become my eyes and ears in the village and guide us through this dramatic moment. And I came across Yuka. She was 25 years old, grew up in the village and was in between jobs, so was helping her father in the rice fields. Yuka was in this difficult position of having to respect what the elders of her village thought, organic farming is bad, but also understood why the sake brewery thought organic farming was the future. On paper, she was the perfect character, but the more we filmed together, the more I realized she wasn't ready or really that interested in embarking on a journey and spearheading the future of the village. I was forcing my hopes onto her. At the same time, I was getting to know someone from the other side of the story, a sake brewer called Koseki, who had been sent to the village by his boss, the Jajoo, to live there and start growing organic rice himself. It was to prove to the villagers it can be done, but Koseki had been making sake all his life. He'd never even planted a flower. Nevertheless, Koseki took his mission seriously and was reading up about organic farming, the history of rice farming, the terroir of Akita. He tried all sorts of ways to protect his rice from weeds and pests, and went around the village getting to know all the elders and understand what their concerns were and how they could work together. It dawned on me, although I wanted this film to be about the villagers, or at least told from the villagers' perspective, it was clear Koseki was going to tell it best. The title of that film is The Organic Terrorist, and a nod to a comment Koseki once made about himself. And it was a big lesson in learning that you can't force a purpose or an emotion onto a person. If they're not showing it already, they're not going to miraculously evolve and show it for you. And here we are to my 7th lesson. I imagine many of you are planning your career, dreaming of particular outlets you'd like to work at, and projects you'd like to be on. All of this, I think, is really important because I believe you make your own luck. It doesn't just land in your lap. You need to keep your eyes open for opportunities, keep in touch with people that work in your areas and want to work in, and cultivate sincere relationships. But my lesson here is not to be afraid to take detours and put in some hard yards on the way. With our careers, you really can't plan too far ahead. You have to let your nose lead a bit. Get used to being flexible and do things you know nothing about. If you asked me 15 years ago if I'd be working on a hugely topical documentary that would potentially change the way people think about sexual abuse in Japan, I mean, I would have loved to have believed it, but I was so far away from that. As you know, I was escorting body-painted Russian models out of a snowball fight. But I really don't see any of that experience as irrelevant or invaluable. It's the accumulation of those experiences, the weirder the better, and the more different the more valuable and the more invaluable. The wider variety of perspectives you gain, the greater the expansion of your knowledge and empathy. And with that, later it will help your investigations, analysis, and storytelling. So don't take the straight and narrow route. By all means, keep both eyes on the road, but travel light, take the path least trodden, and enjoy the ride. Thank you so much for having me virtually here with you tonight. I believe there are some exciting announcements now, so I'll let you get back to that. And I hope you all have a wonderful evening.
Meg, before you go, before we say thank you, I want to ask you one question. Could you speak briefly about how you got started in journalism, in this whole enterprise? Kind of, how did you begin?
Oh gosh, where do I start? I started because I wanted to go into documentary filmmaking. As I said, I really believed in the power of film and storytelling through film. And so my route was through TV. And I was working, as I said, I was working as a runner, but I think the most prominent job was actually I was working as a fixer in London for Japanese TV shows. So my clients were people TV shows like Sekai no Hate Made Itte Kyu or NHK documentaries. And I was working as when those TV shows would film abroad, they would contact a local fixer or coordinator, and I was a part of a company that did that. And so my first TV experience in documentaries was actually Japanese TV and Japanese documentaries.
Wow. Well, Meg, thank you so much for your time tonight and for sharing your experiences. And let's give a round of applause to say thank you to Meg.
Thank you very much, everyone.
Oh, thank you so much. Wonderful talk, Meg. I'm now going to hand the floor to David. Do you want to go first, or Hans, or you want to? Go ahead. Okay. I will hand the floor to David McNeil.
By the way, Meg just had a baby. Did everybody know that? She just had a baby, so somewhere in the background is a baby screaming that she's miraculously keeping quiet. Just to add to what you said, I mean, the FCCJ was instrumental in two big stories in the last 2 years. One was Shiori Ito, which you mentioned. We gave the biggest press conference here, several of the biggest press conferences, and the Kitagawa press conference as well. You know, we broke that story. So if you're not a member of the club, do consider becoming one. We have two runners-up. They're the joint runners-up. I'm just going to mention their names. It's Ding Xiaolin. I hope I've got the pronunciation right. Hi, Ding. And we also have Swastika Jajoo, who's not here. Is that right? They are the two runners-up. Do you want to speak a little bit about what you did, or would you prefer me to describe it? Iidesuka? Hi. You want to hear my, well, so the panel reviewed them. What they call it was a review of the Ishikawa Flower Park show, and we all agreed that it showed evidence of real research, knowledge, and strong writing skills. It was well researched and knowledgeable, and we were all impressed that you seemed very serious about being a journalist. That was the thing that everybody kind of, agreed on. So well done to the two runners-up. And the winner, and I think you have the essay in front of you, is Eru Ishikawa. Eru Ishikawa. Just let me, can you hear me, Eru?
Hello.
Hi, Eru. How are you? Where are you today?
I'm currently in San Diego, California.
San Diego, California. Okay. Well, I'll just tell you what the judges said. Eru was the overwhelming winner. Eru wrote a feature about discrimination against people with tattoos in Japan, businesses in Japan that discriminate, and one place in particular that doesn't discriminate. I was kicked out of a public bath about 2 years ago with my whole family for wearing tattoos, so this story pushed the button with me. As I understand it, Eru says that you're going to use the money to help fund your education at the University of California in San Diego. You're doing an exchange year there. And she says she wants to accelerate her dream career in financial journalism. Among the ways she's going to spend the money is by traveling. One of the trips that she plans is to Mexico. So I think what all that shows is that Eru has one of the key qualities for being a journalism, which is curiosity. Thank you very much and well done. Eru, do you want to say a few words?
I just want to say that I'm really honored to receive this award. I wrote this piece in hopes of capturing an issue that's uniquely Japanese, and I really hope I can continue to expand this piece as I refine my skills as a journalist. And I think that this award is a great milestone for me, so thank you so much for this opportunity.
Thank you. So there's the award, and I guess when Eru's in Japan, she'll pick it up at the front desk. Thank you so much. Next up is photographs. Is that right? No worries.
All right, everyone. Thanks. I'm here to announce the photo winners and runner-ups. My name's Hans Greimel. I'm a member of the club. I actually am a part-time instructor at Waseda University, and some of my students have won this award in the past, and I've applied for it in this current round as well. So I'm happy to be here and help support the next generation of journalists. And if you'll just allow me to relate a funny story, among Megumi's 7 learned lessons, the second one kind of hit home with me, which was never assume anything. And I had an embarrassing work experience where I assumed a little bit too much and was caught out. And it was a case where I had to interview the vice chairman of Toyota Motor Corporation. And I do a lot of work with Toyota, covering them in my current job as a business reporter. And I assume that when they have these kind of interviews, it's usually at their headquarters in Toyota City, which is a suburb of Nagoya. So it takes 2 hours to get there on the Shinkansen, then another hour or so on the train to get to the city, then I have to take a taxi for about 15 minutes to get to the headquarters. And I did all that. I reported to my place of the gleaming 10-story tall headquarters building. I walked into the headquarters building. I said, hello. I called up the PR people. I said, hey, I'm here for the interview. I'm 15 minutes early, just like usual. And they said, what? What are you doing in Toyota City? Today, the vice chairman was in Tokyo, and we arranged it to be at our Tokyo offices instead. So I was like, what? So I just assumed that the interview was in Toyota City. I spent 3 hours getting there, hundreds of dollars on train tickets, only to be quickly fixed up with the ultimate, these expert PR people with a video conference, and I was then video linked into the person back in Tokyo. So that's a case where you should never assume anything too much. But I'm here to announce the photo winners, actually, so let's get right into it. We had a number of photo submissions this time. It was very difficult to choose a winner and rank the submissions. I think the photo entries are very popular with students these days because being part of the social media generation of photos are almost second nature to younger people these days. They're taking photos of everything from their lunches to their friends to their what they look like when they wake up, what they look like when they go to sleep. So photos are second nature, and there were a lot of entries this year, so it's very difficult to choose. But we will do first a shout out to one of the attendees today, which is Alec Hirata. And he was very interesting. He presented a photo essay and kind of a word essay as well that compared the idea of fashion appropriation, people who kind of adopt, it's a kind of cultural appropriation of other cultures through fashion. It was a very interesting, thought-provoking photo essay. So thank you for submitting that. I'm sorry to say that you weren't the winner, but we wanted to give you special recognition here tonight as well. Another runner-up, I might add, was Hinari Amakata. She is a student at Sophia University, and she graduates next July. She's studying social science, and her photo essay was a documentary of daily life in Rwanda. She recently went to Rwanda and took a photo essay of basically daily life there, kind of comparing it to her home prefecture of Okinawa. And in her own words, she said that it was a kind of a country that was vibrant and full of opportunity and ambition, but yet held back by social, economic, and environmental challenges. So that is the theme that she tried to present with her photo essay. And I'd like to just pull one quote from her application as well, which was that she said that the most exhilarating moments in my life are when I discover a new emotion through new experience, and I believe these discoveries have the power to move other people too. So in a way that echoes a lot of what we heard from Megumi just now. And you can see some of her pictures. Perhaps you saw some of her pictures streaming on our screen here during the dinner time where some of the photos were being shown. So we'd like to give a special shout out as well to Amakata-san. Finally, I'd like to recognize our winner in the photo competition, which was Song Linxiao, a Waseda student who graduated last September. She graduated with a master's degree in international relations through the political science department there. She's from China, and she plans to use her winnings, she says, on a high-quality camera so she can continue to pursue mobile journalism. Her photo essay was about child poverty and rural life in Siem Reap and the surrounding areas of rural Cambodia. And it was very detailed with good detailed captions explaining each and every photo, the good composition of each and every photo, and it had a clear focused theme that was extended across all of the photos. So we thought that was a very well presented and thought out photo essay. The committee thought that.
She's actually joining us virtually.
Oh,
Are you there?
very good.
Song-san, are you there?
Song-san, are you here?
Yeah, hello, I'm here. Sorry, I cannot make it to the club because I'm currently in Paris. I'm working at UNESCO now on a communication team, so it's still, somehow related to journalism. So I really appreciate the prize, the scholarship that I received today, and I will continue my career and then based on my knowledge about journalism. And of course, thank you very much, Mr. Hans. You were a very inspiring lecturer at Waseda. Yeah, thank you.
Yes. Well, thank you very much, Song-san. Thank you. And we do have an award for you here. I think you can see it here. It's a little, what is this? A certificate of award. And I suppose they will. The club will be in touch with you to make sure that you get your winnings. And I'll share also a quote with Song-san for you all. In her application, she said, "Journalists are truth seekers who often face obstacles such as media ownership. Despite these challenges, we must have the courage to strive for journalistic utopia, where the pursuit of truth is paramount and unencumbered by external influences." So I thought that, especially coming from a Chinese citizen who lives in, or who has experience in the Chinese media sphere, that was a very brave thing and brave thing to come to grips with and to express. So thank you for your application to the scholarship program, and best of luck in your continued career. All right, I'll hand it back to you, Martin. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you, Hans. Thank you, Hans, and thank you, David, for announcing the winners, and thank you to Ishikawa-san and Song-san for joining us virtually, and to Ding-san and I'll call you Alex, sorry. I could call you Hirata-san as well. Thank you for coming, and everybody else as well. I did want to give a quick shout out to some of the other guests tonight. David Dolan from Reuters is here. Are you Deputy Bureau Chief? Is that right? Deputy Bureau Chief for Reuters. Peter Landers, Bureau Chief from the Wall Street Journal. Noah Snyder, Bureau Chief from The Economist. Thank you all for supporting our next generation. And then on the academic side, I'm not forgetting, last but best, Hayashi Kaori from the University of Tokyo on the academic side. And then our own David McNeil also is a professor of journalism, and Hans as well, right? So thank you all for coming and for teaching the students. And also I want to give a quick shout out to Karin and to Shoko. Shoko, you were runner-up for one of these awards in the past. You're now at Bloomberg, right? So she's gone. This is proof that these scholarships work, right? So she's now working at Bloomberg. And Karin, you won one of these scholarships, and you're now working at the Japan Times. And Karin just came back from Ishikawa Prefecture, where she had a big story to cover. So, and thank you to our student members who came tonight, and thank you to everyone. So I'm going to wrap it up here, but thank you so much. And one more round of applause to our winners. Thank you.